All right, and talking about the impact of Brexit on African economies, in studio we are joined by members of the Public Finance and Tax Committee of ASPAC, a good number of them. They're here to talk about post-budget, but also to talk about Brexit. And I think we'll start with Brexit being the immediate issue. We have Philip Mwema, who is from Nexus, and we also have Michael Mbarugu at my extreme left, who is from PKF. And finally, to the center right there, we have Francis Kamau, who is from EY. All of them are tax partners at the different companies right there. But they are members of the Public Finance and Tax Committee of ASPAC. Thank you both, all actually, for joining us. I will start with Philip. You know, Brexit has been talked about, I guess, for the past so many weeks since Britain voted to leave the European Union. But do you think, from your perspective, do you think we are actually being too optimistic about it, or we need to continue being speculative?
I think we need to be more speculative, because if you look at the move by Brexit, they're leaving out the EU, and the immediate impact even within the EU.
Yeah.
In fact, my view, I think, is looking through the move that Britain has done, where the world has become flat and there's globalization. They've gone on the extreme left. It's high time maybe for Africans to start thinking it's high time to conquer Britain in terms of going into
trade.
Absolutely, for trade.
All right, Francis, what do you think about the whole Brexit issue? Was it a mistake for them to actually decide they now wanted to leave the EU?
I think if you look at Africa, actually we are trying to come up together. Actually we are creating a mega economic bloc for Africa. So trying to combine EAC, COMESA and all that to one mega body. Now, looking at what is happening at Brexit, at UK for that particular matter, I think they are going against the grain in terms of economic, creation, in terms of wealth creation, so to speak.
Yeah.
So having said that, maybe we can see a bit of a good way of appreciating it as Commonwealth countries, because of course we'll be having, few consideration in terms of migration and all that from a UK perspective. Kenya is a member of a Commonwealth, so to speak. But from a larger perspective, in their own analysis and their own agenda, I presume they are lost, so to speak.
All right. Yeah. And Michael, some people would actually say, if it worked for them over these past 43 years or so, and now they are deciding to, leave the EU, what does that mean for us as African economies? Are we building something that we will later want to break away from, in the spirit of we can now go it alone?
Yeah, well, I would imagine that in the minds of the Britons, when they voted to exit from the EU, they obviously do have some good reasons, and those reasons have been stated. Obviously, they have stated the fact that they are one of the countries actually who, on a year basis, do honor their financial obligations to the EU. You'll find some, Eastern Europe countries that have joined the EU, including some broke European countries like Italy.
Yeah.
They tend to be weighing down, especially of the younger people. And if you look at the trend, it's the young people who really did want to be bogged behind or backwards in terms of financial commitments by their existence in the EU. But I do think perhaps they would have expressed themselves differently in terms of negotiating within the EU and pushing more responsibilities to the countries that are not participating well within that framework. So I think when you have a problem in your house, you don't ban it. You sort out your problems from right inside the house. They were a bit unstrategic in that respect, but I think there are varied reasons why the young people in Britain feel that their existence in the EU is weighing too much on their future.
On their future,
so
all right.
there are varied reasons.
All right, so as we await for the triggering of Article 50, I guess we can only just speculate and see what exactly is going to happen. But now it's a month since the budget was read out to Kenyans by CS for National Treasury Henry Rotich, and some people say it was a Wananchi budget. It's now a month since, and I guess the one that was most talked about was the tax on cosmetics and also the increased taxes on kerosene. But these tax partners are going to help us understand exactly how this could bite into your pocket in the next year, or at least this financial year of 2016-2017. So, Philip, I'm going to start with you. I remember the most thing that maybe people underestimated, because probably it was overtaken by the events of the tax on cosmetics, was that on kerosene. Do you think that this is going to impact heavily on the ordinary Kenyan?
Absolutely. If you look at the introduction of excess duty on kerosene, which is used largely by Wanjiku, so that we've now coined Wanjiku as a person. The thinking behind introducing the excess duty on kerosene was to protect the adulteration of our fuel, because then our neighbors, our neighboring countries, Uganda, Congo, while we're looking at Rwanda not passing through their fuel within Kenya because of adulteration. Now, with that move as a way to protect that industry on the white fuels and black fuels, so to speak, we introduced an excess duty on kerosene, but the multiply effect on that is the people who use kerosene in terms of just the sheer numbers are huge, from Mukuru kwa Njenga to across in Kibera, Katwekera. If you go to Katwekera in Kibera, I bet you know where Katwekera is.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
great.
Trust
So
me, I do.
if you look at if you look at the population that's using kerosene, it's huge. Then you increase that it's a basic commodity for them. Kenyans living below $1 a day. I think in a pre-election year, I don't think it's a very bold move.
All right. And, you know, we can actually talk about this, but I guess because we want to go through so many issues in the limited time we have, let's also talk about the road maintenance levy. And I think this is also one of them that is going to bite quite a bit into our pockets. Francis, you want to highlight on that? How exactly do you think we are meant to be paying more of than we should have been paying with the RML?
One of the things is that maybe I can go to the impact specifically in terms of the rise in the costs, especially when you come to the pocket of Mwananchi. And I presume one of the things is that the fuels which you are talking about here, which will be the Mwananchi will be paying the roads maintenance levy. Basically, one of them is transport. Actually, is going to affect the transport, and I think, as my colleague has mentioned, it is basically touching to the pocket of the real Mwananchi, so to speak. And also, having said that, it's also going to affect, the general populace in terms of the cost of generating wealth in this particular country. So, just like the way he has talked about, the issue of the kerosene, so to speak. It has a ripple effect and multiply effect. In fact, what we can do for now, there's no study which has done to see actually the multiplicity of factors, so to speak, in terms of, we can basically put a figure of a percentage. But there's multiplicity because the Matatu guy is going to increase the cost of fare. Again, onto that, the particular person who is using that particular vehicle, who is a trader, is also going to increase the cost of the goods. And that multiplicity of factors is what is basically going to be humongous, so to speak, when you look at the larger perspective.
All right. Also during his budget statement, he talked about the fact that I think landlords were going to get some sort of relief, but that only applied to those who were able to put up 1,000 units in a year. And some people thought, that was a far-fetched dream for one landlord to put out 1,000 units in a year. It's more like, impossible. But Michael, what do you think about this? Do you think it's something that is really going to help us maybe get to a level where we're seeing housing affordability going down or becoming more affordable?
Well, I think the initiative for 1,000 residential units to qualify for a preferential tax of 20% instead of 30% is a good initiative, but it's a mute law as it is created, because there's no single developer in this country who will achieve 1,000 units within 1 year, unless the government obviously has in mind the Mabati type of houses that you find in the slums, and I don't think that is what the intention is. So clearly, I think for me the fundamental issue that the government need to address are two things. The cost of land in this country is exaggerated. That is the main cost for anybody doing development, and the cost of borrowing in excess of 20%. So what the government ought to be doing, in my view, is to have clear land policy that will ensure that people who are in such housing schemes get this land at affordable rates, number one. Number two is to do something about the borrowing rates. For as long as those two items have not been addressed, it's not going to be possible for the housing costs to come down. It's always going to bog down the developers, and giving an incentive of 20% corporation tax on those who do about 1,000 units every year, it's a moot point, as I said. It's not going to work. It's actually just going to remain in paper.
All right.
I do tend to have a different view on that, Michael, because if you look at the low-cost housing, it's not your conventional brick and mortar that's targeted for. I think this incentive ideally is meant to trigger innovation within the construction sector. And in the last, I think, 3 months, we've seen a lot of low-cost housing coming up with panels, the prefabricated panels. And with the prefabricated panels, if then I think 1,000 units with that kind of thinking on the prefabricated panels being done around the country, it's achievable. So I think that the whole idea is, my thinking is innovation coming out of the construction sector. We don't go the traditional brick and mortar. Maybe now it's high time we now embrace around the country.
Okay. Well, my director is telling me we're out of time, and I wish we really had more time for this conversation. But, you know, the finance bill is coming up, and we are going to have yet another opportunity to talk more about this. But I would like to say thank you so much to my guests. Philip Mwema, who is at my immediate left. He is a partner at Nexus Business Advisory. And we also have Francis Kamau, who is a tax partner at EY, and Michael Mbarugu, who is a partner at PKF. Thank you all so much for joining us on this edition of Business Today. Coming up next is Worldview with Akisa Wandera. So you want to look out for that, and also some views on the fighting that broke out in South Sudan. You might want to look out for that conversation she's going to be having with the South Sudan ambassador. Do stay tuned to KTN News.